There are people who save every penny like their life depends on it. They've got comfortable savings, good jobs, zero debt. By every measure, they're financially secure. And yet, every time they think about spending money, even on something they truly want, something inside them tightens. A quiet voice whispers, "Not yet. Maybe later. What if something happens?" This isn't about being frugal. It's not about being smart with money. It's something deeper, something psychological. Because when someone can't bring themselves to spend money, they're not really hoarding cash. They're hoarding control. They're hoarding safety. They're trying to protect themselves from a fear they can't always name. Let's talk about what's really going on beneath the surface. The origins, where fear takes root. For many people, the relationship with money was shaped long before they earned their first paycheck. It started in childhood. Maybe they grew up in a home where money was unpredictable, where bills caused tension, where phrases like, "We can't afford that," or "Money doesn't grow on trees," echoed through the house like warnings. Maybe there was a period of real struggle, a job loss, a medical emergency, eviction notices, lights getting shut off. Maybe they watched their parents stress, argue, or silently worry about how to make it through the month. And even if the crisis passed, the feeling didn't. The brain absorbed a lesson. Money is survival. Losing it is dangerous. That belief doesn't just fade when life gets stable. It lingers, quietly shapes decisions. Even decades later, when the bank account is healthy and the income is steady, spending still doesn't feel like freedom. Feels like risk, like stepping too close to the edge, like lowering the shield. And so they hold on, tighter than they need to, not because they're greedy, but because letting go feels like losing protection. Loss aversion. Why spending hurts more than saving feels good. Here's something psychologists discovered that explains a lot. Losing something hurts about twice as much as gaining the same thing feels good. It's called loss aversion, and it's hardwired into human psychology. Imagine this. You find $50 on the street. You feel a little happy. Nice surprise. Now imagine you had $50 in your pocket, and it falls out without you noticing. You realize it later. How does that feel? Probably much worse than the found $50 felt good. For someone who hoards money, this effect is amplified. Watching their bank balance drop, even by a small amount, triggers emotional pain. It doesn't matter if they're buying something useful, something they've wanted for months, something that would genuinely improve their life. The act of spending feels like loss, and loss feels like danger. So they avoid it. They delay decisions. They tell themselves, maybe next month, maybe when things are more certain. Not because they don't want the thing, but because the emotional cost of spending outweighs the potential joy of having it. The number in the account becomes more important than what that number could provide. Control, the real currency. Here's where things get interesting. Most people think money hoarding is about accumulation, about wanting more, but that's not it. It's about control. Think about it. When someone checks their bank account 3 times a day, they're not celebrating wealth. They're checking for stability, for predictability, for proof that nothing has gone wrong. The account balance becomes an emotional thermostat. When it's high, they feel calm. When it drops, even slightly, anxiety creeps in. Even if nothing else in their life has changed. The money itself isn't the goal. The sense of control is. And here's the tricky part. That control feels good. Feels like safety. It feels like being the responsible one, the planner, the person who won't get caught off guard. There's an identity built around it. I'm the one who's prepared. I'm the one who doesn't make reckless decisions. I'm the one who has their life together. But slowly, quietly, that need for control starts to limit life. Because true control is an illusion. Life is unpredictable. Markets shift. Health changes. Relationships evolve. And no amount of money can eliminate uncertainty. Yet the brain keeps chasing it. One more year of saving. One more milestone. One more cushion. I'll relax after this. I'll spend once things feel secure. But that moment never actually comes. Because certainty doesn't exist. And preparation, which started as protection, becomes a permanent state. The shield becomes a cage. regret avoidance, the paralysis of perfectionism. Another pattern shows up constantly in people who struggle to spend. They're not trying to maximize joy. They're trying to minimize regret. They don't want to look back 5 years from now and think, I shouldn't have bought that. I should have saved more. I made the wrong call. So they choose inaction, because doing nothing feels safer than choosing wrong. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Inaction is still a choice, and time is the one resource you cannot save. Imagine this. You're 35. You've saved aggressively. You've got 6 months of expenses in the bank, retirement accounts growing, no debt. You want to take a trip, see a place you've always dreamed about, but you hesitate. What if the market crashes? What if I lose my job? What if I need that money later? So you wait, you push it off, and 5 years pass, then 10. And the dream stays a dream, not because you couldn't afford it, but because you couldn't let go of the fear long enough to live. That's not financial discipline. That's fear dressed up as responsibility. The identity problem. Who am I if I'm not careful? Here's something most people don't talk about. For many money hoarders, spending threatens their sense of self. They've built an identity around being the responsible one, the disciplined one, the person who doesn't waste money, the one who plans ahead, the one who doesn't mess things up. And that identity feels safe, feels like virtue. But what happens if they loosen their grip? What if they spend on something purely for enjoyment? What if they take a risk and it doesn't work out? Suddenly, they're not the careful one anymore. They're reckless, irresponsible, foolish. That fear, the fear of losing their identity, keeps them stuck. Because spending isn't just about money. It's about who they believe they are. And changing that belief feels like losing themselves. So they stay small. They stay cautious. They protect the image more than they protect their own happiness. When safety becomes a prison, let's be clear, none of this means someone is broken. These patterns usually come from intelligence, from awareness, from survival instincts that once served them well. They learned how to protect themselves. That matters. But survival mode isn't meant to be permanent. At some point, the skill that kept you safe starts holding you back. Saving is smart. Planning is powerful. But money was never meant to only make you feel safe. It's also meant to be used. Intentionally. Meaningfully. Without constant fear. Real wealth isn't just having enough. It's feeling secure enough to actually live. To spend without panic. To enjoy without guilt. To trust that you've built something solid, and you don't have to guard it like it might disappear tomorrow. Because if money only ever reduces fear but never increases freedom, then it's not serving you. It's controlling you. The shift from hoarding to living. So what's the way forward? How does someone break free from this cycle? It starts with awareness, with seeing the pattern clearly, recognizing that the fear isn't about money. It's about safety, about control, about old lessons that no longer fit. It means asking uncomfortable questions. What am I really afraid of? What would happen if I spent this money? What's the worst-case scenario? And can I handle it? Often the answer is yes. You can handle it. You've already built resilience. You've already proven you can manage. The fear is louder than the reality. It also means redefining what wealth looks like. Wealth isn't just a number. It's the ability to make choices without constant anxiety. It's the freedom to say yes to experiences, to people, to opportunities, without feeling like you're risking everything. And sometimes it means practicing, spending small amounts intentionally, without justification, without guilt, just to prove to yourself that the world doesn't collapse when you let go a little. Maybe it's a meal at a restaurant you've been curious about. Maybe it's a book, a weekend trip, a gift for someone you care about. Not because you need it, but because you want it. Because life is happening now, not someday. The final truth. Here's what it comes down to. The goal isn't to stop being careful. The goal is to stop being afraid. That's the difference between saving and hoarding. One is intentional. The other is compulsive. One creates freedom. The other creates pressure. And once you see that difference, once you realize that security doesn't come from never spending, But from trusting yourself enough to spend wisely, your relationship with money can finally change. Because money is a tool, not a master. And the people who truly understand wealth don't just know how to save it. They know how to use it, to live fully, to invest in experiences, in relationships, in the life they actually want. Not someday, not when everything feels certain, but now, while they still can. That's the shift. That's the freedom. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop preparing for life and start living it.